Welcome to Bayana, the heartbeat of tech in MENA. We bring you raw stories and sharp insights from the founders, investors, and leaders building the region's startup ecosystem.
And today we are digging into a really wild one, a story about how building basically a totally broken free app can somehow morph into this massive intelligence system for global restaurants.
Right. I want you to picture this puzzle. You leave a highly lucrative, super rigid investment banking job doing equity capital markets, right? To plunge headfirst into the absolute anarchy of last mile logistics.
Yeah, quite the career pivot.
And then you blindly open a restaurant, build a completely useless free app to try and fix it, intentionally ignore your only users for like 8 months, and survive a bank collapse that wipes out literally all of your cash.
Oh, and don't forget raising $9.5 million while doing all of this without a single paying customer.
Exactly. It makes no sense on paper. So today we are zeroing in on Danny El-Zion and his company, Suppi. Our mission is to figure out how this chaos actually created a massive data moat.
Yeah, we are unpacking the mechanics behind that whole evolution, like how you execute a brutal pivot when your back is against the wall, the real unit economics of scaling through just pure hustle and building a genuine product mode.
Okay, let's unpack this origin story, because Danny didn't set out to build a restaurant tech empire at all. He spent 6 years doing structured finance, M&A, ECM.
Very predictable, very process-driven.
Super rigid, you're orchestrating IPOs. But he admitted it lacked this visceral chaos. He needed to be wired. So he jumped ship to join QuickApp, a logistics startup. And while he's fighting those daily fires, he and some friends just decide to blindly open a restaurant. Zero hospitality experience.
Which is, honestly, it's a classic catalyst for vertical software founders. You enter this famously low-margin industry without any of the, institutional blinders, and you immediately run face first into the worst inefficiency.
Right, which for them was food costs. The raw ingredients, labor, waste, it was just devouring their margins.
Because food cost is the most volatile line item on a restaurant's P&L. It fluctuates literally every day.
So his instinct is to just stop the bleeding, right? He figures, if I can monitor what the chef buys, I can control the margins. So he hires a freelancer, builds a tool in a week, and launches the first version of Suppi. Just a simple, free approval app.
Yeah. The chef wants 50 pounds of tomatoes. Danny gets a ping and clicks approve. No business model at all.
Okay, let's unpack this because I have to pause here. Building an approval app without any actual inventory data is like putting a heavy-duty padlock on a bucket full of holes.
Wow. Yeah, that analogy is spot on.
You can watch the transactions happen, but you have no idea if the business is actually profitable.
What's fascinating here is he fell into the trap of solving the wrong problem. He confused authorization with actual intelligence. Like, the lack of a business model wasn't the fatal flaw. The flaw was control without context.
Right, because if you approve the tomatoes, but the POS system says you only sold 10 salads last week, you're basically digitally rubber stamping food waste.
Exactly. And that structural gap became impossible to ignore. One of his anchor customers, this major group called AdMind, literally threatens to churn. They tell him they're switching to a competitor who has real inventory management.
And instead of just taking the L, Danny looks them in the eye and asks for 3 months. He goes back, fires like 20 to 30% of his team, scraps the entire product architecture, and tells the rest of the engineers to build a full inventory system from scratch.
Which sounds like startup suicide, right? Ignoring your early adopters for 8 months to build something totally different. It sounds so arrogant.
Totally. Every founder is taught to obsess over early users.
But Danny viewed that early free app as just a discovery mechanism. It was a wedge to get inside the kitchens and map the real pain points. They had to move from a simple yes or no button to a highly complex, multi-relational database. You can't just tweak a workflow app to do that. You have to tear the house down.
So they spend 8 grueling months doing exactly that. And when they finally launched the MVP, the sources point out how rough it was. You literally couldn't even edit a typo in an ingredient name once you entered it.
Yeah, no basic financial reports either. But a polished feature that solves a minor annoyance will always lose to an ugly product that solves an existential threat. The market became their QA tester. The real operators pushed that buggy MVP and bug-fixed the platform for them.
Let's shift gears to the financials, though. Before we talk about scaling that ugly MVP, we have to address the craziest detail. Suppi raised $9.5 million before making a single dollar in revenue.
Insane.
Wait, how do you convince investors to hand over almost $10 million for a vision when you don't have a single paying customer yet? What is even in that pitch deck?
Well, you aren't pitching the software. You're pitching the massive scale of the problem and the wedge you found to solve it. He was selling a structural overhaul of food cost margins. Investors saw that if Suppi became the core operational database, the lifetime value of one restaurant group would just be astronomical.
But Danny himself is actually really cautious about that kind of early capital, right? He warns founders about the dark side of raising massive pre-revenue rounds.
Oh, heavily. Because the second that VC cash hits your bank account, a ticking clock starts. Suddenly you have quarterly board meetings, aggressive burn rates, scaling targets.
The pressure.
Yeah, Danny believes this artificial pressure is exactly why so many founders are terrified to pivot. They know their product is broken, but board expectations paralyze them. The lesson here is you cannot let venture capital force you to scale a broken product. Get real product market fit first.
And they really had to prove that fit the hard way. Getting to 1 million in ARR was just pure grit. No paid channels, no big agency partnerships. Danny was just cold calling, knocking on kitchen back doors, and harassing people on LinkedIn.
Pure hustle.
Yeah.
But within that, they use this highly calculated ambassador model. If you're breaking into a new market, you don't need billboard ads. You just need one respected anchor client.
Because when you walk into a restaurant, the first thing they ask is, who else do you work with?
Exactly. And if you drop a flagship local brand, the walls come down. In Dubai, they got AdMind. In the UK, Black Bear Burger. In Australia, Slim's Quality Burger. That anchor client bypasses months of B2B sales friction.
But going from 1 million to 10 million requires an entirely different playbook. They are dialing in the unit economics now, SEO, paid ads, product-led growth.
Right, where the software basically sells itself.
Exactly. Users invite suppliers onto the platform, and it goes viral without a sales rep. Here's where it gets really interesting, though. They are building these engineered systems, but Suppi operates with this insane internal chaos. They tripled in size last year, but they have 0 org charts.
Yeah, an anti-corporate structure.
Yeah.
They refuse to parachute in seasoned executives.
Yeah.
And this pushes back on the media talent myth, right? People say the region lacks top talent, but Danny says the talent is excellent. The real bottleneck is just speed.
He literally makes job offers at the end of a first interview. He says, I need someone yesterday. Isn't that reckless? If you're scaling a complex product, how do you justify risking a bad hire just to save a few bucks?
Well, in hypergrowth, speed is risk mitigation. A suboptimal hire who can write code tomorrow is way more valuable than a perfect hire you have to wait 3 months for. By the time the perfect person joins, the company's problems have completely changed anyway.
And to manage this totally flat structure, they use technology instead of middle management. They built a live AI sales coach.
This is so cool. It literally listens to the live sales call, analyzes sentiment, and flashes prompts on the screen telling the rep how to handle objections in real time.
So you don't need a manager reviewing calls on a Friday.
Exactly. It flattens the org chart. And it ties into Danny's belief about founder mode versus manager mode. He insists the CEO of a startup has to remain the chief product officer.
Which flies in the face of the Silicon Valley playbook. You're supposed to delegate that as you scale.
But venture-backed startups operate in total uncertainty, unlike corporate giants with 10-year plans. You need rapid, instinct-driven pivots. Hired executives would just overanalyze it.
Like their Hong Kong expansion. They signed one customer in September, and by November, Danny just decided to launch the whole market based on founder instinct.
A committee would have spent 6 months on a feasibility study. It's why Danny still spends his weekends building prototypes. It makes you ask, are you delegating your core product too early? Just because of societal pressure to act like a quote-unquote real CEO.
But relying on speed and instinct has a massive blind spot systemic risk. Which brings us to the SVB collapse. Suppi had 100% of its cash in Silicon Valley Bank when it went under.
It's just a total nightmare. Your metrics could be flawless, but if you can't make payroll, you're dead.
The existential dread of that weekend must have been insane. Today, he uses like 4 different bank accounts to spread the risk. But surviving that near-death experience made them realize they needed to build impenetrable switching costs.
Right. A lightweight approval app is too easy to rip out on a Friday and replace on a Monday. It's a nice to have.
So they built over 1,000 interconnected features. Deep menu engineering, inventory routing, live supplier catalogs. They shifted from being a vendor to being the actual operating infrastructure for massive restaurant groups.
Everything we've talked about, the pivot, the expansion, the features, it all feeds into this end game they call the restaurant brain.
The restaurant brain.
Yeah.
Which sounds crazy, but it's autonomous. Most software is just a retrospective dashboard, right? You log in and see you lost money last month. Suppi is building a system that acts before the human even asks.
And that is entirely dependent on the data mode. They aren't just scraping analytics. They are hoarding ground truth, transaction-level data, every invoice, every micro-fluctuation in tomato prices over years. No competitor can replicate that, no matter how much VC money they have.
And now they're weaponizing that data with AI. But Danny says the AI isn't the core product.
That is the whole game. If you just build a sleek AI chatbot, anyone can clone it using standard APIs. Sapai's proprietary database is what makes the AI powerful. It autonomously detects margin erosion and triggers supplier substitutions live. It models menus without human intervention.
So the system is managing the costs for them. It's the central nervous system keeping the business alive.
Completely redefining the restaurant's relationship with tech.
Which leads me to this final thought for you listening. We obsess over who has the best AI models today. But what if the ultimate competitive moat for the next decade of SaaS isn't the software itself, but the invisible, gritty, unsexy operational data that makes the AI actually useful? If you're building a startup right now, are you just building a tool? Or are you quietly hoarding the ground truth data of your entire industry?
That is exactly what every founder needs to be asking themselves.
For more stories like this, subscribe to Bayanat's newsletter and stay updated on the latest in MENA's tech and startup ecosystem.